I firmly intend to promote its delivery and availability of debt advice for all EU citizens.
These kind of tools, debt experts can more easily and faster identify some features.
The project is helpful because it gives concrete ideas on what is meant by financial literacy.
Our experiences show that debt management is very important, that people are not evicted and that they don't become homeless.
When people have a debt in the utility services, that there is obligation for the authorities to apply debt advice.
And in the end of the day, it's also to make sure that the citizens, the clients who get help, know that they can rely and trust in the help they get.
At VVK, we have about 14-15 conferences with creditors about quick arrangement between debtors and creditors.
We have developed a way of measuring the repayment capacity of people, which is accepted both by creditors and debtors, which is quite unique.
How can you set up an intervention and improve your intervention to help people to stay out of debt?
Good morning, my name is Willem Pieter and I would like to welcome you on behalf of project partners SEPS and VVA as well as the European Commission, which initiated and commissioned this seminar series on good practices in debt advice. Today is the second out of 3 online seminars on good practices in debt advice in the EU, and there will be 3 new good practices being presented. For the first good practice of today, we start in Belgium. Sarah Welbers of the Knowledge Center for Debt Advice, or Steunpunt Mens en Samenleving, will present the first good practice on utilities-based detection of households in need of debt advice. Sarah, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I will share my presentation. Can you see the presentation on your screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Well,
please share your screen and we go, otherwise by Bea will take over.
Share screen. There
Bea,
we go.
Okay, it's coming. Good.
I
you can start. Put it
no.
on presenter view. So I have 3.
Is it okay now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So I would like to tell you something more about the good practice that we have already for some decades here in Belgium, Flanders, to be exactly, the utility-based detection of debts that people have for their utilities, like gas, electricity, and water. Well, we have to look upon water, electricity, gas as something that's an economic activity that you pay for a service that you get, but also water, electricity, and gas are very essential parts that we need to live a humane living. And in our legal system, it is a right that we all have to a humane living, and this includes the access to clean water, the access to energy, the access gas for heating. So there are two ways of looking upon this, and there has to be the two sides that has to be taken into account. The client is not only an economic client, he's a user automatically when he is connected to the supply, when the meter is recorded, when he signs a contract. So automatically he is a client. He has his obligations from the moment that he receives this service. The suppliers in Belgium, for water, it's always a local or intercommunal public authority. There is no choice for the client, for the user to choose his own supplier. For gas and electricity, it's a little bit different. There are different commercial suppliers. You can choose which one. You can choose for a green supplier, or you can choose for the cheapest one. Then there is a choice. But when you don't pay this price for gas or electricity, then automatically you get dropped by this commercial supplier and you come to the network operator, which is again a public authority. And so the supplier for people who have a difficulty paying their debts come automatically with the public authorities. So is it a contract or a public service? It's both. We have different regulations on this, and it's really a very regulatory relationship. The price has to be transparent, and there has to be a continuous supply, quality control, safety. So it's truly not just another commercial product. Because of this, there is also a protection for the users in case they don't pay their invoices. In case of that, the public suppliers have to apply their social public service obligations. It is provided in the law that this is obligatory for them to apply these obligations. When a client doesn't pay, it's fixed in the law which interest they can ask, which fixed cost they can ask, and the cutting off from the supply is also regulated. Only it can the three utilities can only be cut off if the user refuses to come to an arrangement for the payment of the debts, to pay what is agreed in this arrangement when there is an arrangement, or if the user refuses the entrance to the house and the meter in case they come at his house, and if the user refuses to take over the contract after moving in a new house. But in these cases, in all these cases, it's always necessary that there is a decision or an advice to cut off by the LAC, the Local Advice Commission on this. It's never only the supplier that can decide to cut off. What is this Local Advice Commission? It's the role of this commission. It's an assembly of three parties. The participants are always the user. The user is always invited to come to this LAC meeting. He has the right to be heard. He has the right to be informed. He can bring somebody for legal counsel. He can take a trust person or his debt mediator. So he's always invited. One of the most important participants is the OCMW, the Public Center for Social Welfare. So the help that is provided by the OCMW is always automatically in the picture. Officially, it's the head of the social service, which is the person who is at the LAC, but it can always also be a representative and a member of the committee. And then the third party who is in the LAC represented is a network operator. So the network operator
Sarah?
But a very important purpose is that the prevention of the cutting off of water, of gas, and electricity. So it's not, it's really to find a solution and to prevent the cutting off. And so every request to cut off has to be decided by this commission to find a balance between this economic purpose and also these social public service obligations. The participant of the OCMW plays here a very important role, because the social worker from the OCMW has a lot of work before and besides the meeting of the LAC. They are, in the best cases, they find a solution before the LAC takes place. So the participant, so the user can get an invitation, but he gets also the possibility to make an arrangement or find a solution before the meeting. The OCMW is best to contact the user in any way that is possible.
We're waiting for Sarah to come back.
Situation.
Sarah, we just lost you for 20 seconds. Could you please stop your video and continue the presentation?
Stop my video.
Yeah,
wait. How do I do this the easiest?
Just press the camera button. Yes, perfect.
Oh, okay.
Please go ahead.
So what is very important that there is that the social worker analyzes the complete social and financial situation, not only the debt for the utilities, and that he can find together with the user a viable solution, and that he provides budget supervision if it is necessary. There is also, before cutting, the possibility to apply a budget meter, so that people have to pay first and then get a supply of electricity, gas. There's also a possibility to put a flow limiter on the meter, not only for gas and electricity, but also for water. This exists. But the OCMW has also the possibility to really financially support the user of the utilities if it is not possible to find another viable solution. If he can't pay it for himself, the OCMW can give really financial support for at least a part of the debt. There is, however, not always a positive reaction. It's sometimes there is really a lack of financial or personal capacity. People don't know what is possible in working together with the social service, or they don't understand the situation or the consequences. Sometimes people are really angry, so they don't respond. And then it is possible that at the date that the LAC takes place, there is not a single reaction. Then it is possible that electricity, gas, or water is cut off. What is essential, that is the continuous efforts to make contact and stimulate the viable steps to a solution. That it's not after, if it gets cut down, that OCMW stops. No, they have to continue trying to contact these people. The decision of the LAC has always to be taken unanimously. So it's when OCMW says no, then it's not possible to close off, to cut off the water. The decision can also
We're waiting for Sarah's connection to come back.
Willem, in case of difficulties, we can ask to the second presenter.
Yeah, I see that the connection has been lost. I think we're going to do that. We think Sarah for now, and we go back to Sarah when the connection is restored. So if we go to the second presentation, so first of all, later on there will be again the possibility to follow Sarah's presentation. For the second presentation, we move to Denmark, where Sandy Madaris, the CEO of the Social Legal Aid, as well as a president of the European Consumer Debt Network, or ECDN, and she will present to us the good practice on an ethics code for debt advice, which should guarantee a minimum quality of debt advice being delivered by debt advisors. And I would like now to give the floor to Sandy. Sandy, please go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for taking the time to listen to my presentation. I hope my internet will be better. I just changed it to be sure. First of all, I will give a very short introduction to myself. Here is what I've been doing since 2000, which has been focusing about debt counseling and lead in this social effort. But it's more important who I was before 2000, because before 2000, I was an over-indebted person. I was social vulnerable, but luckily I had a change in my life around 2000, which made me want to make sure that no one else would ever feel the frustration and the powerlessness I felt when I was over-indebted. So that is why I started my association. A short introduction to the ethic codes, and here I want you to please bear in mind through the whole presentation that this is an association built by a former over-indebted and social vulnerable person, which means that that is the heart I have in my counseling. We developed them in 2010, even though we started our association in 2007. But because, as all of you remember, the finance crisis hit us in 2008. So 2008, 9, and most of 10 is just been a marathon. But in 2010, I had the time to stop up and look back and see, we need to do something, because at that time it was the Wild West. There were so many cases of bad counseling. Of course, not for our case, but there was a lot. So what we decided to do was to develop rules of ethics to make sure that in the future our association could be able to at least showcase what we were doing. So what we have done is that we built the ethic codes, which is implemented in every step we have in our counseling. And it is to ensure that we get a uniform, transparent, and qualified debt counseling. Those three words are the fundament in all our debt counseling. It applies to every debt advisor in our country. Unfortunately, most of them are volunteer students, and not, I'm of course happy for that. But I know in a lot of my neighbor countries, they have paid professional staff, but in Denmark, it is run by mostly students and interns and a few handful of educated people. So that's also why it was even more important for us to ensure there was a code of ethics. Another thing which is also to remember, at that time, there was it was bank counselors who were doing the counseling, it was debt collectors, etc. And there was a lot of people who was misusing this access to people's data. The contents of our ethic codes is here in short. This is the 15 paragraphs there is, and it goes through all the steps there is in a counseling. It is how we have to act as an association. It's what it means for being a debt counselor. It's how we do our work, etc. So this is the basic. Of course, I'm not going to this now, but for those of you who want to hear more, I'll go much more into it in the workshop. But these are the 15 elements there is in it. What is also important to understand that the ethic rules is just not only a piece of paper with a lot of words on it. In ethic rules, there is a lot of steps or process, etc. you have to live up to. And I'm so sorry, this is in Danish. I really couldn't find the English version. Of course, I have one in English also. But this is to give you an idea how many tools there is for us even doing our debt counseling. And even though you cannot read it, but on the top it says ethic rules, and you can see that is the mothership, and then everything else goes underneath. What is also important is this is only the tool for debt counseling. There's also all the tools about running an association and what we have to live up to, etc. But this is just to showcase how many documents and processes there lies under ethic rules to make sure that we can actually live up to them. Sorry, I was too fast here. One of the things which is most important about our ethic rules, and again, you have to remember this was the finance crisis, it was a Wild West, the creditors who we actually had a very good relationship with at that time, because before I started my association, I actually went out to all the big creditors, both the public and the private, to do this partnership to make sure that everyone could have qualified, transparent, and uniform counseling. So for us, it was also to make sure that we could send out a signal to everyone. Doesn't matter if you were a creditor or a debitor, etc. But it was the trust you could have to us as an association. We demand to ourselves that we ensure that all the advisors are uniform, which means they have the same education, the same supervision, the same tools, everything else. And it's also to make sure that we live up to some high standards. I will say we have put some very high standards to ourselves. And the transparency is to make sure that all our processes, etc., is access to everyone who wants to see them, because it's so important for us that both debtor and creditor actually can see what we are doing, so everyone can see the transparency in it. And this is to make sure that everyone gets a quality and a mutual respect when we are negotiating, etc. And if you can hear some sounds like dodong, dodong, it's just my heart because I'm so excited. So I'm sorry if my heart is over, or if it's just me hearing it. And then there's, of course, the trust between the organization and the debtor, which is so important because everyone who has worked with debt counseling knows that the debtor, there is so much mistrust, there's so many feelings involved. So to make sure that the debtor can actually trust in you and not think that you will misuse their information for with creditors, etc., then it's so important for us that everyone knows all the steps there is in our counseling, which means there's also some tools for our debtors. And the uniformed, as I said before, is to make sure that doesn't matter, because I'm a national association, I have 3 offices. For me, it's so important that it doesn't matter which office you call or which debt counselor you call, everyone should hopefully say the same from the tools we have made. And the quality is, of course, that we keep on making sure that they get all the new laws, the new processes, etc. And we also have an online platform with all our tools where we can get supervision from each other, etc., which is a very good thing here. Then there's also the thing between the debtor and the creditor, because here you can imagine a lot of our clients, they haven't spoken to their creditor for a long time. So their creditor is a little bit tired of running after them. So it's also about creating some trust between debtor and creditor, especially when we need to negotiate. Here it's, you have to, as a creditor, I can also understand if you've been running after your debtor for I don't know how long, and then suddenly they're there and they want to make a change. It's also about trusting that they actually can live up to these things. And here we come in as a mediator or some kind of, in a way. For us, it's again about the quality, the respect, and especially to make sure that the debtor knows that when we have to negotiate or to prioritize the debt, they know that we will always prioritize first their home, the electricity, all of these things, which is important for them to still have an existing fundament. And the creditors also know that we don't prioritize others towards the others, which is also very important when you want to make deals. There's also the trust between creditor and the association, of course. And here it's very important that the creditor knows that they can count on us. They know that if we, for example, send a suggestion to a payment, they don't have to test it because they know all the work that lies behind before we even contact them and say, this is our client's story. That also means that in a lot of cases, we actually have a shorter working time with the clients, which is very important because for many of our clients, I'm sure many of also of you who work with debt counseling, many of them are in risk of losing their home or their families or etc. So we don't have time to lose. And not only that, we have to remember that these over-indebted people, they have a very big cost, not only for the creditor, but also for society. And here I'm not even talking about the scars it can put in your soul when you're fighting over-indebtedness. And I know this because I used to do it. In practice, it's about making sure that me as the CEO, that I always live up to these ethic rules, is to make sure that we have money, we have insurance, we have the right tools, we have the right IT, etc., etc. That is on my level. Then on a council level, it is to make sure how they can navigate in their counseling. Example, our ethic rules is actually used almost on a daily basis when we sometimes stand in it with a client where we need to decide, is this, can we live up to our ethic rules in this case, or what can you say, is this client in our target group, etc., which is also defined in our ethic codes to make sure that it's the right people getting help. On the debtor level, and for us, it's of course the safety, because all our clients knows that we have ethic rules. They know we live up to them. They see our tools, and they see that we really try to do our best. On the creditor level, and you have to remember, I've been doing this on a national level for 13 years, over 13 years now. And before that, I did it for 6 years on the local levels also, which means for over 20 years, I've been able to see how many good processes we have been able to do through the years, how many laws we've been able to change, and actually in the end of the day, how many people's lives we have been able to change because we have been working together. One of the things I've always tried to do since day one was that I need to work with my creditors. That's the only way I can help my debtors. But to make sure to do that, you also need to have ethic codes so everyone knows that you can actually navigate in this bomb minefield it can be when you're doing debt counseling. How much time do I have left? I cannot see. William, you promised something.
You're well on time. Please go ahead. You still have 5 to 10 minutes.
Wow. Okay. Well, and again, for me, it's important to state that with these ethic rules, it is, as I said, it is about the processes. It's about how you can make sure that when you get a client in, that you do the right steps, or if you have to send a client to another place, how do you send the client there? And it's also, then I can maybe spend some time telling a little bit how we made them. Our ethic rules, because there was nothing in the area. I had nothing on a national level to look at. I had nothing on an international level. Lucky for me, I was working with maps in Ireland already there, so I could get a lot of help. But I had nowhere to really look. So what I did was that I took the ethic rules, the code of conduct for lawyers in my country, and then I took the ethic codes on an international plan for also for lawyers. And then I took those and I ran them through and I chose what I thought was important to also transfer over to debt counseling. And the reason for that is that if you have worked with legal aid and debt counseling, and I have to say that I also have a national legal aid, I have been a busy girl, which means that I have the possibility to combine both when we educate them or when we supervision or etc. And here it's so important that we give that counseling the respect of that it is as minimum at the same level as legal aid. And in some cases, I would actually say it was a little bit over, because when you work in legal aid, for example, if you want to have a divorce, then it's a few laws that you've been working on. And because the law is so well thought out and there's so many, I don't know, processes for that, then it's very easy. And it's also easy to get legal aid counselors in. But when it comes to debt counseling, especially in my country, there's no education, there is nothing, there's no processes, etc. So all of these tools you can see here, right? Here is actually processes we had to build because there was none. And if you see over here where it's like the blue big box, that is like for every line there is, that is the process of how we work with the banks, how we work with the private creditors, the public, the court, etc., because it was so important also for us to make sure that we could actually describe down to the smallest detail, because Again, if you work with debt counseling, you know it's always walking through one door, then another door opens and another door opens, etc. So there are so many processes you have to keep in mind. And that is something which is also why we certify our staff. And we're built on an online education platform with tests and diplomas, etc., because we want to make sure that, as I said, to deliver uniform counseling, it is so important. And before everyone is thinking, wow, she must have a lot of money to have done that, I want to say that for the first, 10 years of my work life, I didn't get paid. I was so lucky to marry well, and I chose to use my freedom to do something good. Because when I finally got all my debt cleared and I could see clear again, I wanted to make a change. So it was not about the money. And our budget in our debt counseling, where we do over 3,000 cases a year, we have a budget which is about 130 euros or something, 130,000 euros, I think, to run a national debt counseling. So it is not about that it costs a lot of money to develop or to supervise afterwards. Of course, it will take some time to start doing the processes, but in my book, to start a debt counseling, you have to have thought about all of these things before, so you are sure that you can do a uniformed and qualified and transparent debt counseling or debt advice for that matter. So for me, it has been a mission since I started this. And again, please remember, I used to be over indebted, is to make sure that everyone who works in debt counseling understands the responsibility we have. Because when I was over indebted, I couldn't navigate. I couldn't even read the letters. I couldn't even answer the phone. And I've said this in many places before, 20 years later, and you've seen my CV, which is impressive, I can still not open my own letters because 20 years ago, as an over indebted person, it is still haunting me and being so afraid opening a letter saying that I owe someone money. Today, I owe no one any money. The only money I owe is for the house I'm sitting in right now, but when I sell it, I will earn money on it. I cannot even owe or send anyone like 10 euros before I get dodong. So it's also to respect what is it that over indebtedness does to people, even 20 years later. No matter how much you succeed, it is still in you. And that's why it's so important that we do everything we can to help and to make sure that they get the right help, and also the social wow, I cannot say this word. I know, I hope you understand what I mean. And also to finish it up, because I cannot see you now, William, but in the bottom under the blue text, you can see it says on the left, it says law counseling. On the left, yeah, it says law counseling. On the right, it says social efforts. And it's because it's also important to understand, I have in 20 years not met one over indebted person who didn't also have a legal problem, or in some manner had one or more social problems. So it's important that we do a holistic counseling. And that's also why, as I started with my presentation, my association has 3 legs. It has a debt counseling, it has a legal aid, and it has a social effort. We also visit the prisons, we come visit the social disadvantaged on the streets, etc., because we also understand that the most of the people who need this help, we actually need to go to them. I'm sure my time is up now.
About Sandy, but so if you have, do you have a final word? Otherwise,
the only thing I can hope is that many of you will be inspired to come into the workshop, so we can have a dialogue of why it's important to have a quality debt counseling, and also if you would like to hear all of these thoughts and ideas and etc., which is underneath in doing these ethic codes. I want to say that we did them in 2010, but we spent 1 year not trying, but 1 year implementing them first internally and externally. Because it's, again, not just a piece of paper. You need everyone to be on board with it and understand it. So thank you, everyone. And let's hopefully have a good day and a good online sessions here. Thank you, and hope to see you in the workshop.
Thank you very much. Well, we see that the connection of Sarah is still not fully stable. We go first. Thank you, Sandy, very much for also transmitting not only the practice, but also your passion for debt advice and all you did in the years, both in Denmark and at the EU level to push debt advice. We now move on to the Netherlands for the third good practice that will be presented by Linda. And Linda is from the Association of Debt Advisors in the Netherlands. So Linda van Vliet. So if you could switch on your camera as well as your presentation, then you can start. So Linda will present the good practice about covenants with creditors that her association agreed on.
Yes, thank you for the introduction, Willem Pieter. Thank you, Sandy, for the inspiring words and the personal story. I want to go to the workshop of Sandy, of course, now. I will introduce myself. I'm program manager with the NVVK, Dutch Association of Dutch Association of Social and Debt Advisors. We have members all around the country, about more than 100 members. And some of you, if there are some Dutch people, think around here, we have about thinking 100 members. That's not that much. It is because the responsibility for debt advice is with the municipalities. Some of the municipalities are doing the debt advice itself. Then those municipalities are members of us, and some other organizations work for more municipalities or work for municipalities in whole the country. We have a network of members all the country. So if we make covenants and agreements, the whole country works in the same way in order with the creditors. I had a very rough week, so I did my preparings, but sometimes I will hesitate. I hope you excuse me, and my story is clear enough. Our members are not only debt advisor SEC, they have a broad spectrum of financial services, because sometimes there's more needed than only to make a settlement with the creditors. We also have social banking members, guardianship, the adult professional guardianship, and financial administration. So there's a lot of more ways to get debt problems solved than only debt advice. I want to give you a context how debt advice works in the Netherlands. If you have financial problems and there are problematic debts, there are two ways to get help. One is with the municipality, that's for the amicable settlements. To give you an idea of the order, in 2019 we had 20,500 persons helped with a settlement for the debts. If it doesn't work, for example, one of the creditors won't go along with the agreement our members proposed, or there's some other hiccup in the hiccup in the agreement with the creditor, is also the possibility to go to the court, and then the court can make an obligated settlement, compulsory settlement. About we don't have the numbers of 2020 yet. It's still fresh. But in 2019 there were 5,000 cases that went to court and get a compulsory settlement. those 20,000 cases, what are we talking about? We're talking about an average debt of 43,500. That's the average. That's the average. I'll stick to that. So there's quite some roadblocks to solve if you have to make an arrangement with agreements. I switched that around. On average, there are 14 creditors in that debt, and all those 14 creditors have their own procedures. So that's quite a tough job to get all those creditors in line. Officially, we have like in Denmark, a whole code of conduct with the whole procedure that is uniform for all our members. Officially, there are 5 formal moments in this procedure of communication with the creditors, but in practice, that's on paper, and that's formal, but informal, and in practice, we see that there is many more contact needed to get all those 14 creditors in line and get all those creditors agreed. So with these numbers, you might understand that it's handy to make confidence with creditors to smoothen this process. Just a little in-depth for the introduction to see how it works. We also, comes from our code of conduct. If somebody comes in for help, of course, there's an application. Then if it's necessary, we make sure the person gets a stable financial situation. So it's necessary you can have the income to pay water, electricity, rent, things like that. If it's certain, if the situation is stable enough, we go to the next phase, the negotiation with creditors. It might take some while, but mostly people get this done in 4 months. Stabilization also 4 months, and the total procedure, the debt resolution itself, is also always an agreement for 36 months. And if it's necessary, there's also follow-up care for about a year. Now we go to the real part, the confident part. We made collective agreements between our organization, the NVVK, and associations of creditors, big creditors. Because we have this, we cover the whole country, it's more interesting to with other associations to make sure it's nice to have an agreement with one electricity company, but it's more interesting to make one agreement with all the 20 electricity companies in the Netherlands in one time. So that's our main focus. Of course, there are some sometimes it happens that we make agreements with big companies. Example, in the telecom sector, there are only three big parties who provide telecom services. So we have in 2019 we had some new a new arrangement with one of them. A year later, the second, and in this year we are working with on an agreement with the last one. So this is our strategy to focus on the big companies in the Netherlands, and most frequently the creditors our members see most frequently in the debt cases. These confidence are basically work arrangement. If I send you a proposal, will you react on it between 5 or 10 days or other terms? We make an arrangement about how we exchange data, and there's a lot of explanation how the procedure works, and how the whole debt advice process works, and what we expect of the creditors. So it's not handy if we make a proposal and the creditor is expanding its costs or bring extra costs in charge. So we have these about this kind of arrangements. We are trying to improve and accelerate the resolution process, and like in Denmark, these ethical codes and code of conduct are very important. This is the base of our confidence. If we all do the same and all the proposals are the same, the calculations are the same for all our members, that gives a lot of trust to the creditors that the proposal is just the highest possible solution for creditors and debtors. So it doesn't matter if a proposal comes from Groningen or Gorinchem. For all those persons who don't speak Dutch, the names sound exactly the same. For the creditors, the proposal from Gorinchem to Groningen also must exactly the same. What are the mutual advantage of the governance? These governance for the debtor, of course, the advantage is that the whole process is improving, and it's more possible to get faster financial clarity. They know in a very shorter time, not very short yet, but comparing to how it was, it gets very faster every year. There comes more, so it's much more clear, is this a debt we can get an agreement on, or do we have to court, or are there some other hiccups in the process? We get this very it's very quick to get that. The creditors have much more lower administrative costs because we also we stick more to the formal communication moments, not the informal. Where is your reaction on the proposal? Can we get the total amount of money clear? So we stick to the process, and we select carefully if we can skip parts in the process. So they know also, they have also faster financial clarity. They can write off their open post. Some companies use it as part of their corporate social responsibility policy, and of course, it's very important to restore the relation with the customer. If the relation is restored, it's also possible to deliver goods again, and more security that the next bills will be paid, especially in utility, telecom, and things like that. People don't switch very often, so it's very important for those companies to have a good relation, to know if the bills are going to be paid, and what to expect from each other. For the counselor, it saves a lot of time and less paperwork if the process is clear to the creditors, and we have some clear working arrangements. There's far more chance to get a successful deal, and if the counselor doesn't need much time to focus on the paperwork and all the administrative handlings, there's more opportunity to have time to really look at the client and work on behavioral change or other things that are necessary for the client to stay debt-free. I only work for 3 years with the NVVK, so I don't can give very anecdotes about how it was 20 years ago or 40 years ago. But I sometimes see old documents, and I'm sometimes surprised. Did they call it a covenant in the 90s? Because I find some very old documents from the NVVK with some organizations, and in the early days it were just examples of covenants. Then there was no. It wasn't possible in that time to make arrangements of these covenants that would apply to all the NVVK members and all the creditors in that sector. So there were examples that our members could use with specific creditors. Later on, it evolved, and in 2006, the covenants at that time were more like an explanation of the process. If we take step A, we expect you to do step B. Then we go to phase this, and then phase that. So it was more an explanation of the whole process instead of hard deadlines and agreements. In 2010, there was the first agreement of the covenant with healthcare insurance companies. This was the first more hard agreements in this covenant. So this was the first one that said if we send a proposal, will you say yes? And it was an in principle agreement. So 95% of the proposals are always succeeded with the healthcare insurance companies. And later on, more we have agreements, for example, with KPN. It was the first one, the biggest telecom service company in the Netherlands. They made some calculations and they did their math, and they said they came to the conclusion that it's a very administrative process, the whole debt advice process. So they did, well, if I let you know what is open with us, will you just let me know what the outcome is? So I don't want to see proposals or letters in between. If somebody ask you for help, and he is a client of us, I will tell you if there's 100 euros or 200 euros or 300 euros open post. Just let me know how much, the percentage is that I get, and don't bother. Let's don't bother each other anymore. So it's much trust in the whole Dutch system, and much trust in our members that they do their work good, that the proposal is good, that we work uniform, and so it makes a lot more easier to give good debt advice to our customers and clients if we can have more of these covenants. I did the calculation over. Sometimes we have quite uniform covenants with several companies, and if there's or organization, if there's a chance, we try to get those together. So we have now a little less confidence than last year. The year before, we try to make them more uniform. So we have a national government covenant, but this includes 6 organizations within the national government. The health insurance company I mentioned earlier, this is a very important one because health insurance is always involved if somebody asks for help. Utility companies, electricity, water, gas, also very common, telecom I mentioned, and we have the first covenant with a credit management organization, and we are on very good speaking terms with the Dutch Association of Credit Managers, and we are trying to make that the most big covenant of this year. So fingers crossed that it will work, and this is a big change in attitude and cooperation between our organizations. Credit managers and debt advisors were always a little bit on the opposite of an agreement that was that seemed the way for the outside world, but we have very good relations with them and are working very hard on a good cooperation. The plan, not only for credit management organization, but we have an ambition to cover the top 10 creditors and especially the sectors. If the banking is, for example, a sector we don't have a covenant with, so there's a few more organizations on our list for this year. When I started 3 years ago with the NVVK, I was doing that by myself, and now I have 2 colleagues who do the same work, so we're on speed to cover this top 10, and the ambition is to get the whole process much more faster. Now it's very regular to have this process in 4 or 5 months, and I think it must be possible to do this on and the model says 120 days is our members have to try to do it in 120 days, and now we think it must be possible in 1 or 2 years to do this in 12 days. So again, fingers crossed that we will get there in this year or next year. I think this is the end of my presentation. Yes, indeed. So let's.
Thank you very much, Linda, for showing us how you successfully, with your colleagues, initiated the covenants in the Netherlands with creditors, and through that, among other things, have reduced the administrative cost, but especially speeded up the debt settlements procedures. I saw already in the chat that many were interested in joining your focus group. If you want to join Linda in the focus group, you can indicate 3 to our colleague host, Bea Posso. So she will then assign you to the group of Linda. Of course, it's also possible to join Sandy in the second focus group or Sarah in the first focus group. Speaking about Sarah, unfortunately, we had to interrupt her presentation earlier this morning, so we would like to give her a few minutes to round up her presentation before we move to the focus groups. So Sarah, if you could share your screen. And then we, okay, put on your presentation on the big screen. Yes,
you can see the presentation now.
Yes, we do.
I just wanted to show you the numbers in Flanders, because that's really what shows that this good practice is effective. There are in Flanders around 80,000 people who have now problems with paying their electricity and are on the network supplier. So they are cut off from the commercial supplier, but on the network supplier. and for gas, that's 85,000. For the budget meters, there is a little less number, 39,000 for electricity and 26,000 for gas. There are in total 28,000 cases which are decided before the LAC commissions, but only 900 households are cut off from electricity, 800 from gas and 920 from water. That's still too many people. That's always too many people. We should try to achieve that nobody is cut off totally from gas, water, or electricity. But if you see the numbers of cases are that are really in debt and coming before the LAC, you see that it's really just a small number who is cut off. Okay, I hope
thank you,
that
Sarah.
I can explain it a little bit more than with
yeah, so we can of course discuss this in the focus group, the first focus group as well. So
okay.
Before we move to the focus group, there will be a short intervention from Francesco Gaetano from the European Commission. Francesco?
Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, please go ahead.
No, it's simply to thank the participants for their participation. Thanks to the presenters for their excellent presentations. And I mean, we are in front of very interesting and important topics that touch the life of everybody. So I encourage you to be very, very active and proactive during these three subgroups meetings, and that's all. Nothing more than this. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Francesco. And now we will be moving to those focus groups. In those focus groups, you will first see a short video that has been prepared about each of the good practices. So you will see the one of the good practice for which the focus group is designed. And then you have the possibility to discuss the good practice that was presented, allowing you to ask questions, but also to give your own experiences or share your own experiences. If you want to join the first focus group about utilities-based detection with Sarah Walbers, indicate then 1. If you already indicated your a certain preference in the registration, you will automatically be assigned to that focus group. So if you have a preference to attend the focus group on the ethics code for debt advice with Sandy Madar, then it's focus group 2, or on your screen you will see breakout room 2. If you would like to join Linda van Vliet and discuss the confidence with creditors, then choose focus group 3 so indicate in the chat to Bea that you would like to join focus group 3. We're now moving to those focus groups. Bea, could you please initiate the move? Yes. So you now get on your